Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be discussing WandaVision episode number 6, All New Halloween Spooktacular. That was the name of the episode. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Hit the bell, leave a comment, leave a like, and let's start with full spoilers ahead, by the way. Yes, well, actually, that is in my notes. Let's start with the opening credits, because that is how it opens. It is straight up Malcolm in the Middle. We're reviewing the series Your Honor, which stars Bryan Cranston, so it's very Bryan Cranston week for us here on Pulp Mythos. But yeah, the Malcolm in the Middle opening, very nostalgic.
Coop agrees.
The dogs agree. I loved it, and I loved the last shot where Quicksilver swoops in and runs to the front, and I just loved all that. But going from that to Quicksilver, there's a lot of shit to talk about with Quicksilver in this episode, because not only is he completely aware of what's going on, and he makes this clear to Wanda, but when she sees him in his, I'll call it zombie form, it's the dead body of her real brother, not the Fox version, but the one that was shot up during the battle with Ultron. Where do you guys, first of all, if you want to talk about the Malcolm in the Middle thing, you can, but also, what do you think is going on with Quicksilver? There's obviously some theories and some rumors. Do you think this vindicates those and proves them right, or not? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to say, because it kind of feels like it's likely that that given what we saw, that he's like, no, this is original Quicksilver, that for some reason, like, this is how he was brought back, it's hard to, well, I mean, we'll need another episode, I think, before we get a clear explanation of what's going on here, because it doesn't seem like it's like it's necessarily, a Quicksilver from a parallel world, or if it is, it's somehow it still is her brother. At least that's a hint that it is, because she sees him as a corpse the same way she sees Vision, and we I think have some idea that this Vision is the same Vision, unless it's not, so it makes it murkier. Whereas before it seemed kind of certain, like, oh, okay, they're pulling from the X-Men universe for characters, because it's a multiverse thing. Now the waters are a little bit murkier as far as what's going on, at least in my opinion.
Well, I thought there's a couple scenes with Pietro, the version that we see now, the way he looked at Wanda, and there's a lot of things that lead me to believe that it is not really him. I mean, we had spoke on theories in the past. Like, I'm really curious to see what it is that he holds in store for them, but I'm really curious as to what's going on with that, because although, yeah, they saw a zombie version, it's just really odd.
Yeah, it's yeah, and he does speak different, and she brings that up, but they seem to know things about each other, and they do kind of feel like brother and sister in this, and he feels, and it seems like he's trying to figure it out himself, because he's asking her, like, well, how did you do this, and everything. So that's the question. He's like I don't think it's necessarily a trick, at least not on his part. He seems more in the know, yes, but still very confused about what's happening.
Well, that was the whole situation with similar to last week with Agnes, where it seems like she sort of knows things, but then she doesn't, and you're sort of left wondering, well, what exactly does this mean? The theories that he's Mephisto, I think, I don't know. I think there are things in this episode that made me say, yeah, maybe he is, and then there were things that were like, well, maybe he's not. So the show's doing a great job of keeping you guessing. It's not clearly answering things. It's giving you a little bit of, it's giving you things that make you say, hey, it could be either or,
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is the sort of thing where he's in the dark about enough where, it's like, I don't know if he is. And, whereas, I'm not certain that he is, and I'm leaning back towards if Mephisto was in this, it being Ralph, because we still have never seen Ralph, who is Agnes's husband.
Yeah. Speaking of Agnes, let's jump straight into that scene because so Vision's basically going on a quest to figure out what exactly is going on because of the events that happened in the last episode, and he goes to the outer part of town, and the further away he gets, we see that the people that are being controlled, they're more props. They're not fully talking and interacting. They're just sort of going through the motions. And I don't know if that's a reflection of, well, I guess in a television show they would be considered just background extras. But I think maybe it's also Wanda's powers. She's focusing on what's going on around her, not so much the far edges of town. That's just my thought. You can tell me what yours is. But when he finally gets to Agnes, she's sitting at the edge of town. They have an interaction. People keep thinking that she is, in fact, was it Agatha? Who's the character?
Yeah, Agnes.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and that's the fact that that's happening with Agnes. That leads me to believe that it's not just the ones that are extras. She's there at the edge of town, and yet she's just stopped there as well. And I believe she has the faculties to, unlike everybody else, to speak back to Vision when he talks to her before he interacts with her. Before he frees her mind for a minute. So Agnes has a greater level of control than the others, but it seems like she still couldn't leave town, and her mind still seemed kind of broken. Agnes may be somewhat significant as well, maybe the person that we think she is, and have mentioned in the previous episodes. So and I'm very curious about that. What's the deal with that? Why does she have a greater level of control, and why does Pietro seem to have an even greater level of control than she does?
His is similar to the twins. The twins, she has no power over them, and he appears to maybe be in a similar situation, similar to Vision even. But then again, we could say there were times where she sort of rewound Vision a couple episodes back, where he would say a thing and she would sort of rewind the show to erase it.
I think that's the thing, is even if they started exerting some sort of free will, she kind of manipulated them to not necessarily forget, but even when Agnes was kind of covering for Vision, the whole, did we get a different line? Is this supposed to be different? She's basically trying to cover. So I don't know if that's Wanda manipulating them to get them back on track, or if that's them realizing that something's going on. And I think it may be Wanda trying to keep with the sitcom tropes and try to get everybody back on track, especially Vision.
Yeah, I think, however this power work that controls them, I think, it seems like they're mentally punished in a way if they go off script, even, who is it? Herb? Is Herb's character's name? Yeah, he even seemed to be, sort of to a degree in the same boat as Agnes, when he was, because he seems to adjust himself during part of the Halloween scene where he kind of gets back into character a bit. I think he says, did I do something wrong? Is there anything we can, you need us to change? I think he says a line along those lines. Yeah. So they seem at least aware that they have to fit within a certain role.
The coolest thing about this episode, and there was a lot of interesting things in it, but the coolest thing is we officially have Wiccan and Speed in the MCU. The Billy and Tommy's powers start. Interestingly, as they're getting older, almost like mutants. When they get older and their powers start. Just saying. Wiccan is a very important character in the comics. Very powerful. In fact, he was in line at one point to be the Sorcerer Supreme. There's a storyline in which Strange goes to some future, a version of the future, and Wiccan, I believe, is the Sorcerer Supreme in that particular future line. Mm-hmm. Point being, he's a very powerful magic user within the Marvel comic book universe. He's considered on the same level as a Stephen Strange. The fact that he's now in the MCU. That's a big deal, and I think if they do it properly with Young Avengers and other things, we could have a lot of cool stories. Speeds is also an interesting character, but Wiccan's definitely the star of between the two. Um, but yeah, what do you guys think about that? That we have it's done. They're here. They have powers.
I think it's great because when we were talking about me, you, Brian, some of the other aspects of how strong Wiccan is, he's in line in the comics to be the next Sorcerer Supreme. So to me, this is Marvel doing a great job of thinking further down the line. So you have Cumberbatch, who's probably going to be Doctor Strange at least through this wave of Marvel movies, and then he's going to be done. Like, he's just going to not do them anymore because no one wants to be tied into a 27-year contract. But this would give the younger actor, whether it's him or even if they change it because they do a time jump, because he can.
Oh, he'll grow up, I'm sure. Yeah.
So you can make it whoever you want, but now you have an established character to kind of do that next wave of that, the mystic part of Marvel. So I think that it's great that they're trying to do it this early, and if they keep along these lines, it keeps it from being convoluted. I think it's good.
Well, yeah, and it's another couple of characters that segue into the Young Avengers, a team that we have most of, in the Marvel universe now. And let me see, and we also know that what's his name from Lovecraft Country, that he's playing Kang the Conqueror in an upcoming Marvel film,
which is a major villain.
Major villain.
Yeah.
For them, and ties into that series very heavily in a way. Ties into both Avengers and Young Avengers in a very, very important way. So it's so I think we're well on our way to seeing that team form, and I imagine that's the sort of thing we may get more as like a mini series than a movie. Or we may get a movie, but either way, it's a good segue, and it's a good segue to a lot of little things. Like you mentioned, these two characters are tied primarily. Billy, is tied into a lot of Marvel events. So yeah, it's good to see them show up and sort of get an idea of the possible future we have for the Marvel universe.
What do you think Hayward is up to? I didn't necessarily disagree with him in the last episode, even though he was being a bit harsh on Wanda, because Wanda is doing bad things. I felt Monica was being a little too nice on her. But in this episode, he goes very far in the deep end, and then they start digging and start finding out that he's not telling them everything that he knows. What is it exactly he's trying to do? What is it that he knows? We have Darcy. Yeah, Darcy is digging into their, I don't know, it's the firewalls and their system, and she's trying to get through to the whatever information it is. What do you think Hayward is hiding? There's a lot of speculation that maybe he's a big bad, or that he's a Skrull, or there's different theories out there. Where are you guys leaning on Hayward?
I think that at very most he could be a tool of whoever the big bad is, but there's no way that he is going to be the main bad guy in any of this. But I mean, he could be working. I mean, you look at everything that they had with Age of Ultron, Thanos, like they have these big characters all leading to Thanos, but how many underling bad guys were there? So I think at worst, that's what he is. But to me, any kind of government corporation, when they start to lose control, it basically sews up your career. So if he loses control, or if he loses this, he's done. So I don't know necessarily that he's he's not a good guy, but I don't know that he's, a main villain or anything.
I think he's potentially part of the remnant of Hydra that remains in the government. And perhaps even part of the genesis of AIM, which is why we got that neat little nod to AIM early in episodes with the beekeeper, and so I think we're seeing the start of AIM here, potentially with this character, or at least that's the closest sort of connection I can make, and it would make sense with Sword and their whole mission of collecting these these living weapons and whatnot. It would also make sense that why they're doing the experiments they're doing on Vision, because they're trying to recreate what he is, and and for all we know, like they may be doing these experiments on Vision and accidentally creating a second Ultron in a way, or it may lead into a return for Ultron.
I'm glad you brought up Ultron. I have a theory, and we'll go right into that. I've not seen anybody else say this, so maybe someone else has, and if they have, cool. But I'm coming at this just from my thoughts. Ultron, Vision, and Wanda are all heavily connected, but Ultron is dead. He's gone. He's wiped. But what if he isn't? Do you think there's a chance that Ultron could be part of this storyline in some way, shape, or form? And I was thinking about this earlier because I was like, when I saw the zombie body of Quicksilver, I was like, that's right. Yeah, I was remembering how much impact Ultron has on Wanda's life, and I'm like, wouldn't that be some shit if he was himself was a major part of this storyline? And like I said, I've not seen anybody else bring this up. Maybe you guys have. What do you think about that? What do you think of the fact that what if Ultron is somehow involved?
Well, yeah, he's so tied to all this that it makes sense. It adds up, and as far as him being dead, given the type of being he is, and the fact that we have seen him reproduce his consciousness in other machines and whatnot, it would make sense for him to still be around, or for us to see remnants of him in this. He is a pretty big threat, and like you said, he has very big ties to both characters. So, there's a good chance of that. There's a very good chance of that. Like, I doubt we've seen the last of Ultron or anything, because for one, with in Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're getting Zemo. Zemo is returning. We're getting Ultron. If there's a chance of, with Marvel reacquiring these properties, us getting the Fantastic Four, we're getting like a Doctor Doom at some point in the future. And I feel like there's a pretty good chance where we see a scenario where we have your Masters of Evil as a group of villains.
I was talking when you first did this, but I was also getting ready to pee, so I had it on mute. And then I was like, why the fuck are they ignoring me again? But I think Ultron is a very real possibility of being still involved. Obviously, I think that they could use him because the Age of Ultron, the Avengers movie, felt kind of disjointed, as where it wasn't involved as much with the real storyline that was going on with Thanos. It didn't really tie in as much. But this would be a way to kind of re-tie him in to something that's more important to the rest of the MCU right now, because the effect that Wanda and Vision are going to have on the entire MCU, I think we're getting ready to see. And having Ultron be a part of that would be, to me, not just important, but it could very well be a good tie-in to the next big villain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry about that. I had the same thing happen to me during, believe it or not, Christmas. That just happened where I was in the middle of a call and thought I was saying all these funny things and that my jokes were falling flat. So I've been there.
Yeah, I
was like, okay, nobody found that funny. All right.
Wanda at the end expands the hex much bigger, and she gets all the sword agents. They're all now part of her world. They're clowns. They're part of a circus.
That was so good.
Hayward escapes. Hayward is not captured in this. What does he do next? Who does he call? Because that was one of my thoughts as we were getting to the end. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Are they going to bring Shield in? Who are they going to bring in? Are they going to bring in any major hero? Like, now he has to reach out and be like, yeah, it's out of control. I'm out of, I don't know what to do next.
And that's when guys, that's when Ultron kills him for being incompetent.
What do you think? Where do you think that goes? Because the ending of this episode was a hell of a setup for some major things that could possibly happen.
Well, I think that him getting away will help lead us to perhaps maybe what the next big storyline is. I don't think that if we think it's Mephisto, he's orchestrating a lot of things, but he wouldn't necessarily talk to this one character who's running a squad of military people. That's too low level for him. But it may help reveal who, because every Marvel movie has that one kind of underlying bad guy who leads to the big bad guy. And I think that we're going to see who that first tier boss in the video game is. And I think that we might find out who that is next episode.
I think I 100% agree with Spencer on this one. To me, it's a good lead into a segue villain when we see who he's reporting to, and it's because, and then that's probably what it is. It's our first link to whatever the big bad is, and maybe not for even necessarily for the movie, maybe even for the shows. Like where these shows may converge to some degree. So we're gonna get one of those things. We're gonna get like either a thing that, or maybe something that ties to a little bit of both in a way. But either way, I don't think he's leading us back to the main conflict for this show. I think he's leading us to our tie-in, potentially.
Yeah. I have two more major things. I saved them for last because I think they'll have potentially the most conversation. That being, first, the commercial. Because everybody has a theory about that commercial. The Yo Magic commercial. First of all, it was really cool, and a definite throwback to old, sort of 90s, early 2000s commercials with the sort of the clay animated type style. And the kid is given by a shark a yogurt. He's starving to death, but he's unable to open it. And he can't open it, and he can't open it, and he dies. He fucking dies. A lot of people think that was a hint at the actual story taking place, that perhaps Wanda was given more power to do what she's doing, but that she's slowly dying as a result. There's a lot of like theories. Did you guys read any of these theories, or do you have your own theories? What did that commercial mean, if anything?
Well, I heard a theory that it just kind of ties to the like her and Pietro's past in Sokovia as just like hungry orphans, not having those resources and whatnot. It's like, oh well, and all I really get from it is it's like, well, I really identify with it right now because I'm looking at a roast beef I just cooked, like I have been for this entire episode, that I can't eat now because we're still recording, and I definitely feel that commercial.
I mean, you can still eat it, Larry. We just talk with your mouth full. It's all right. But I think that I don't know that it necessarily meant anything specific. I think I don't know what, like, because some of the references I got, like the watch one, I understood. There's certain ones that I understood kind of what they were referencing, but this one I couldn't pick apart enough to tie anything into it.
That's why their entire articles written about this one thing, because you're right, all the other ones were pretty straightforward little nods to things we knew. This one wasn't. Yo Magic, I was like, well, what is that? And this one sort of told a story. You know what I mean? This one literally had sort of a story from beginning to end. So that's why a lot of people were looking way into it and trying to really break it down.
Like, and they were even breaking down the name of the yogurt and everything, Your Magic, essentially, and like the child was starving, trying to get through the little yogurt container, like almost as a representation of people trying to break free of Wanda's spell.
That would be the only thing that I could really see, what you just said, because there wasn't any children prior to this episode, and there was a reference to that, talking about, I haven't seen any other children. And they're like, well, what do you mean? That she basically created all the children for this trick-or-treating episode. So all these people who she now has control over again, is it too many people? Is she basically going to forget to tell them to eat? Like, are they going to die?
Well, yeah, and the fact that it's a shark that, hands the kid the yogurt and says, like, yeah, I used to be hungry like you. In other words, I used to want like you. Like, here's a thing that'll solve your problem. And, it winds up being his downfall as he's continuously trying to open this container. It's almost like if it is Mephisto or some outside force, that the shark represents that,
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what a lot of people's conclusion they were coming to. The big, okay, here's the big one, and I saved it for last.
Is it
There,
is it about Monica Rambeau?
it is about Monica Rambeau. So I mean, even Forbes has done a major piece on this. She mentions the fact that she has a friend coming to help, and she specifically states that it's an aerospace engineer. She's like, he'll be here in an hour, or she may say, I don't know if she said he or she or they, or I can't remember, but she said it's an aerospace engineer. They'll be here in an hour, and and supposedly the next episode will be introduced to whomever this character is. Everyone online thinks it's Reed Richards. That we will get an introduction to the character of Reed Richards, who's obviously, in the Fantastic Four, and that this will be their introduction. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We had a discussion prior to recording about this. Like I said, there's lots of articles, videos. Everyone has an opinion on it. First, let's talk about why it makes sense that it would be, and then I want to also say, if it's not, who else could it be? So, what do you guys think?
Well, Spencer had a very good point to make. Because I had the same rebuttal you had, where I was like, it doesn't add up, because where was Reed during all the events of the previous movies? And he is the smartest man in the world. Like, where was he? And Spencer just outright said, like, well, maybe he was off world. And with all the sword stuff we have, and the fact that they are spacefaring, it would make sense for Reed to have been heavily involved with and responsible for that. So, I mean, that's one major way it could work, and that it could tie in heavily. That when we look at all these advancements that the world has made outside of without the Avengers helping, Reed Richards explains a lot of that.
Yeah, and I think that, like, our big gripe with Captain Marvel was why the hell wasn't she around to help during all the initial Avengers tie-in stuff? Because she was off-world. That's how they explained it. To me, this could also help explain it, but it would also tie in exactly to how Reed Richards got his power. Like, it is how the Fantastic Four was formed. And I think this would be a great way to do it. You could have like a one sentence kind of tie-in instead of doing a full 2-hour movie that's a reboot. You could basically introduce him in half an episode. And now when you do a Fantastic Four movie, or you do the Fantastic Four in a movie, you don't have to go back and do the whole backstory, because you can do it in a 25-minute episode and do it in like 5 minutes. And I think that is a great way to introduce him without having to redo a whole fucking movie. And I think that, like we said, the whole sword stuff, with the multiple timelines being established in Ultron, because, the snap and like all this stuff, Reed may have already started to be established prior to that. And then, we basically had a new timeline be developed. And when Thanos came through all the little portals with all his people to attack Earth, Reed could have been like, oh shit. Now this is shortly after all that has happened. And now Reed comes back to Earth because he's trying to figure out how this happened. And I think that it would be a great tie-in. We also talked about too I think that as Mephisto is the main bad guy, he's the next Thanos for this wave of Marvel. But I think a great Loki kind of sub character would be Doom. And I think that, and we talked about it too, me and Brian did on Friday, that, Doom, his face is all messed up because he got burned by Lucifer by Hellfire. You could basically do the same thing with Mephisto and have him be a bad guy where he's working with him. But at the end of it, he basically stabs Mephisto in the back and becomes a good guy, just like Loki. Loki helped at the end.
Well, yeah, and if this is, I'll put it this way: if this is Mephisto, then Doom would have his own personal beef with him as well. So you have a character in there who is both depending on the situation of a bad guy or a good guy, depending. So we have this sort of character who is morally questionable, and whose motivation can reasonably vary from property to property, depending on who he's dealing with. Because he has that deep-seated hatred of Reed Richards, but sometimes he is, working in the capacity of being the hero in certain stories, and on occasion has worked with Doctor Strange. So it's another tie-in there as well, And in fact, you could even easily see your first time you see Doctor Doom could be in the Doctor Strange movie, if anything, or at least the first time you see him as, a Victor Von Doom could be there. So, this could be a pretty big tie-in if it's Reed Richards.
I agree. I think, I like the idea sort of what you guys said there. What if you introduce Reed Richards here, but what if, we have two other shows coming out this year, that being Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Loki. What if he appears in one or both of those, or Doom does, or what if you start building this Fantastic Four storyline through the shows you introduce them? That way you don't have to do an origin film. You slowly introduce. Yeah, you can skip that, introduce the characters, lay down the building blocks of who they are and their importance in this universe.
And you can do like that one Hulk movie where you see a lot of that in the intro.
Yeah, and then when you finally get to a film of theirs, which has been confirmed they will be getting a film, you just jump right in. Yeah, you don't have to do all these little. You don't have to do a full blown origin story. So everyone thinks it's him. That's been the big discussion this week. I definitely see the possibility that it is him. Now the question is the casting. Who is it? Who's the actor that'll play the role? That's a whole other discussion.
I would say we're way ahead of that. And hopefully before they even think about actors, they're thinking about how they're going to write the character. Because, let's face it, how many attempts have we had? And it wasn't Marvel, of course, but we've had so many attempts at the Fantastic Four, all of them bad. I'd really like to see the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom as an antagonist done right for once. That would just be great to see.
Yes. Yes, it would.
And please, hopefully Marvel will please just, do what they've been doing and consult the writers. I'm trying to remember the name here. But for one of the best runs of Fantastic Four. You know who I'm talking about, Brian. You read it as well. Who is it?
Yeah.
You know I don't know the name right now.
Jonathan Hickman.
Yes.
That was an amazing run, yes.
Well, yeah, please consult Hickman while you're making this so that you understand these characters and that you get them right.
I was too far away from my phone. I was going to make an office reference where Andy couldn't remember breaking off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. It's
it's funny you say that because that's who everyone thinks it's going to be. The Jim, the actor that plays Jim. If you type in Fantastic Four, Reed Richards, WandaVision right now in Google, and his picture is the one that pops up.
Is he going to attempt a bad European accent?
I don't. He's the one that everybody wants. I don't know if there's some kind of credibility to the rumor that it's him. Maybe he was seen on set or something. I have no idea. I have not dug into it, but I do know that he is the one that, if like I said, look up any articles on it, it's him, and he's the one everybody wants.
I think he's too big. I don't mean big. Reed Richards is tall and slender, but I think he's too beefy.
Oh, you mean it's Reed? I thought you meant Dr. Doom. Okay.
No, it's Reed. Yeah.
That makes more sense. I was like, oh, I don't see that. But it's Reed, maybe.
So, I don't know. Let's say it is him. I forget the actor's name. The one that played
John Krasinski.
There you go. What would you? What do you think about if he is Reed? If he pops up in next week's episode and they say Reed, would you be? I think he's a good actor, but what do you think?
I wouldn't be mad about it. I'm a huge Office fan. I know he's not going to be playing Jim, but I've seen him in lots of other stuff. He is a decent actor, and I think that he would do a good job. I just want to know how they're going to make him look like Reed, and that's my biggest beef. Though the funniest thing is the one with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans and stuff. That guy looked just like I would picture an actor looking like Reed Richards, but he did such a shitty job. Like, that wasn't necessarily his fault. Like, the writing was awful, but that's what Reed Richards looked like to me. And I think that they did a great job with casting that, but I don't know who else would fit.
Well, I'll put it this way. Like Robert Downey Jr. didn't look like Iron Man, but Iron Man now looks like Robert Downey Jr. And the same with Chris Pratt didn't look like Star-Lord, but Star-Lord now looks like Chris Pratt. So I imagine, if he is picked for Reed, this is what Reed Richards looks like. Reed Richards now looks like Jim from The Office, and it's
they'll redraw it, but just like you, Larry, and we have a history with these comics, so it'll take me a minute to adjust. I'm not saying it's impossible to do so, but it will take me a minute to get on board with that change, because I'll be like, wait a second.
Agreed, because it did take me a while with the whole Chris Pratt Star-Lord thing, and I like in the fact that that's what the character is now, and it's like, well, that wasn't what he was before.
That was not what he was before.
Not in the slightest. And but as far as him being Reed Richards, it's funny you mentioned that he's not going to be Jim for The Office, because I'd kind of, because Reed is a very dry character, I'd kind of want him to be, but I'd kind of want him to be a drier Jim from The Office, a more serious version of that with, to do if he's going to do any comedy at all, do the sort of dry comedy that Jim does sometimes, where like characters in The Office, well, like where it's White sometimes doesn't know if he's messing with him or not, like I'm not saying Reed should be playing pranks, but just, the way he's sarcastic or verbally messes with people, because sometimes he messes with people in a very smart way. So if he's going to have a little bit of humor to him, it should be in that way.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that the way that Jim played him, this is a perfect example of that kind of humor too. Me and Brian were talking about this episode the other day where he was messing with Dwight and he was dressed in a tuxedo. And that was the first day that Charles, Idris Elba, showed up. And he was just like, why didn't you tell me the new boss was coming? He's like, I'm in a tuxedo. He's like, yeah, but you look fancy. You look classy. That's what he said. But it's that kind of stuff that Jim did a lot, like that dry kind of smart assy humor. So I don't know that I would like him to pull a Jim face, like the goofy kind of face, because Reed's not goofy. However, the humor lines up perfectly with a Reed Richards.
Yeah, because when Reed is an asshole, it's very much comes from a place of I'm smarter than you and I'm outwitting you, and I'm just, and he kind of toys with that a little bit, but and to add a little bit of humor to that smart ass nature that Reed sometimes has, especially I think Ultimate Reed had that a little bit more before, his shift. But it would be an interesting take.
The actress that plays Wanda, I forget, the Olsen, she had said something along, there you go. She had said something along the lines of, there's a reveal in WandaVision that's as big as Luke Skywalker appearing in the final episode of Mandalorian. And that was another piece of this puzzle that it got everybody saying, oh, it's going to be Reed Richards. And then, people are speculating, well, who else could it be? Or, what character could pop in? That was another thing that got me thinking Ultron. If Ultron returned, because nobody said that, but a Reed reveal would be a big one too, I think.
Well, yeah, because and it could be both to some degree. It could be Ultron, and it could be Reed.
I think so. I think it's possible. Who else? Okay, let's say it's not Reed. Who else could possibly? Do you think it could be?
Well, like you said, there's not a lot of Professor who?
Xavier. He's not an aerospace engineer, but I'm talking about like reveals.
Somebody built their jet.
Jet, yeah, right.
maybe he is.
But that's what I'm saying is that you think of X-Men. They own the X-Men now too, and we're thinking that that's going to be coming here sooner rather than later. I mean, I don't know.
Beast.
Yeah, but they're going to. Oh, that's not a bad one either. I don't think that would be big enough for her to be like, it's going to be like Luke, because Beast coming in is not going to be like Luke showing up. But I think Reed would be that big of a deal because the introduction of the Fantastic Four, even the Future Foundation, when you got Spider-Man in the universe now. So there's a lot of things that could come in with the introduction of Reed. But the only other one I could think of that would be as important would be somebody like Xavier.
Yeah, it would have to be that big. It would really have to be something that would throw you for a loop, and it would have to be a big character. So when she says that, that makes me not say what I was going to say next, because Spencer said Beast, and like you were saying, that wouldn't be big enough. So the character I was going to mention definitely wouldn't be big enough. I was going to say like their world's equivalent of Forge, from the X-Men. So if Beast isn't big enough, Forge ain't big enough.
Nobody,
Nobody knows Forge. Yeah, right. But if it ain't Reed, I don't know, because like we've said before, not a lot of aerospace engineers. Yeah, so I don't know, and maybe that's not the reveal that she's talking about. That could possibly be it.
Absolutely, you're right. No,
That's what I'm saying. There's still a couple more episodes. I looked it up. It's 9 episodes.
It's not. Yeah, we got 3 more.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. It's interesting to speculate. The last couple episodes have been fantastic. 3 left. Very excited to see where this goes. It's going to lead right into Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I'm very hyped for, more so than WandaVision.
Well, I've got one question about this series itself. So how soon, since we got the confirmation in this episode, well, we got the wink and the gun and all but the confirmation in this episode. How soon do you think that we'll be seeing Monica Rambeau use her powers? Because we have her
she's
mutating.
Definitely going to get those powers. The thing I'm questioning is, what do you do with her character outside of WandaVision? Because clearly you're setting it up. I forget. I don't even remember her character, her superpower, her superhero name, but
Photon. And sometimes Captain Marvel, but Photon.
Yeah, where does she go? There's no announcement of any kind of movie. I'm assuming another show. We know Miss Marvel's getting a show. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, they're clearly setting that up.
I think she's going to have a... Never mind. I was going to say something smart-ass, but I lost my train of thought. It's okay.
Yeah, where do you go? It's hard to say. I imagine towards another Avengers team, if anything. But as far as TV, well, I don't know. I could see her. It would be weird for her to be if she's going to be as powerful as her character is in the comics or anywhere near it. And then she rivals or exceeds the power level of Carol, making her one of the more powerful characters, outside of the sort of trickery that Wanda does in the Marvel universe. So it would be hard to not see her on a new Avengers team of some kind. It would be odd for that to happen.
Sort of the problem is their ability. Look, they do a lot of things great in the MCU, but one they don't do is superpowered characters. They just don't really know how to handle them. And when they do get them and say, okay, this character is super powerful, they sort of bury them or hide them, being Captain Marvel being an example. So
yeah, you're afraid they're going to be like, she flew the space also.
That's where we're going. If it would be in that actress's best interest if they don't give her all the powers, because if they do, I don't know what you do with her. And we've already been shown pretty much what the next phase, the next 3 to 5 years of Marvel, and there's no mention or hint at her at all in it. So I don't know.
So it is worrying that may be the whole thing where she's like, well, I'm off to join Carol in space now.
See you guys later.
Because we know they're gonna make a Captain Marvel movie, another one, but I don't know when. Maybe she joins the Eternals.
Could be. Maybe she's in that and we don't know.
But you're 100% right. They completely setting that up, and I was thinking that too. I was like, well, I don't know what they're gonna do with her, but yeah.
Oh, another thing that makes this seem like it's Reed Richards is the way that they explain that Wanda's hex, and this does tie into what we were just talking about, because I was thinking about her and her powers and the way they explain that her cells are shifting and mutating, and and the fact that one thing we focused on was her outfit, and that one of Reed's big inventions, for the Fantastic Four, the reason that their outfits fit all of their dimensions, and even when Reed stretches, like his outfit doesn't tear apart, is because they're made of unstable molecules. So, it could be Reed studying this outfit and this event that gives him that sort of technology. So that kind of feeds into it in a way, I think.
I mean, I understand it's comics. So like 80% of the things that they say and do sound like utter bullshit.
Yeah.
That one is extra funny to me for whatever reason.
Well, yeah, like I said, it's comics BS science, but this would explain why Reed is able to adapt this BS science, by studying this outfit that took place in this event. That, in other words, it's partially due to magic, but Reed manages to science it in some degree. And they've explained in the Marvel Universe, and I guess in order to get their movies to air in certain places they wouldn't normally, that the magic is science. So it kind of fits into Reed's sphere of what he does, so it would make some sense.
Well, I think too, we talked about magic. You talk about Doctor Doom. This could be before Doctor Doom turns bad or gets burned by hellfire. They could have him come in with Reed. When you talk about magic and science kind of meeting together, that could be a way for them to both kind of investigate it before everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to do an origin story like that. I would much rather have like the one I said, but I'm thinking Marvel verse as opposed to how it should be.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about WandaVision episode number 6?
No, I think we roughly covered it.
I can't think of nothing.
All right. Yeah. Next week will either be a massive, shocking revelation or a major letdown that'll irritate the masses. We shall see. Yeah. Thanks for listening. We'll see y'all next time.
Wait. I was just thinking, we already have Pietro from the other universe. What if Chris Evans comes back, but not?
That's already a rumor.
Yeah, but not as Captain America, but as Human Torch.
That's a rumor for the Spider-Man movie.
That'd be so good.
And that works with Spider-Man because you get some jokes out. He's like, "You look familiar," just
yeah.
But he's like, "I shit, I'm the Human Torch." He's like, "No, I swear I know you from somewhere." Like, yeah. But it definitely fits in the Spider-Man. That'd be funny.
But all right, we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
About to go eat that roast.